Flowers 2 by C.A. Wynn. There wasn't much room for him to stand. His bedroom was cramped, like all the spaces in this small place his parents called home. It also didn't help that he had to share the room with his sister, Maya. Their flat was much like the others in the station, built to maximize use with minimal space. Life on a rock in a distant galaxy was like that. It was something they hadn't told him about when they convinced him this was a good idea. The stone and metal walls were always cold. Waylon tried not to lean against them, but it wasn't easy. "You'll get used to it," he was told. Months into their stay, he still hadn't found that to be true. His sister was worse. She started whining about the temperature as soon as they got there. He'd heard about babies crying for days. That's what it reminded him of. Not that she cried or was a baby anymore, but the incessant complaining was getting unbearable. She was only 2 years his junior, but sometimes he couldn't tell. They were sequestered in the room while his parents dealt with the authorities. It was hardly the first time. Such visits happened much more often on Earth than here. Back then it was his father who attracted attention. Here, on this frozen rock, they were asking about Waylon, the chip off the old block. "He hasn't been out today," his mother pleaded. "Ma'am, we're talking about the last several days," the officer responded for the third time. He had a booming voice. Waylon pictured him with a large belly and an ill-fitting uniform. "Are you sure it was him?" his father asked. Waylon stood still in the dimly lit room with Maya's head buried into his side. He held her there, firmly, trying to stifle her complaints. It wouldn't work for long. "We have him on 6 cameras covering 3 sections of the lower levels," the officer responded. "Why do you have so many cameras in one place?" asked his father. Waylon imagined the indignant stare his father likely gave the officer. "Really? That's what you're interested in?" the man from the school asked. Waylon recognized his voice. He worked in the school's office. Probably had some important title that was the only impressive thing about him. Waylon looked up, trying to picture the cameras that had captured his movements. He and Tommy Milner had been rooting around in the lower levels. They hadn't stolen anything or even done any damage. It was just a way to let off steam. They should have been watching for cameras. "We installed them because of children like your son," the man from the school continued. "This sort of thing happens far too often." "We'll take him out of school then," his father said. Ernest Lloyd had a long history of confrontations with authority. He was always threatening something like this. Waylon knew the threat was hollow. His parents had jobs and responsibilities. They were not about to spend their time watching their 14-year-old son. The officer and school representative left after a while. By then, Waylon had engaged Maya in a game to keep her quiet. "I don't really care why you did it," his father said. It was his usual opening. Waylon was sure that his father secretly supported his delinquency. His father's exploits remained both a family shame and the reason they had a family at all. His mother had her own rebellious streak. "We didn't do anything bad, not like Mars," Waylon offered, knowing it wouldn't suffice. He didn't bother lying. They always found out. In the end, he would pay some price. He'd figured out that he didn't want that price to be uprooting the family again. C.A.WynnSciFi was the second human colony to witness his youthful indiscretions firsthand. On Mars, where the family landed to escape his father's history, the authorities had been more accommodating. That didn't appear to be the case on C.A.WynnSciFi. Maybe it was the distance from Sol. Maybe it was how far they'd run from the Milky Way itself. "You'll have to go to work with us," his father said. Waylon hadn't seen that coming. When he was young, his parents would take him to work. He remembered those times fondly. Not that he really understood what his parents did. They were both botanists, but what did that mean on a rocky wasteland in a distant galaxy? "I'd rather go to school," he said. The statement was more a matter of defiance than anything. His parents knew he hated school. Nothing they'd done had changed that. You should have thought of that before you got into trouble again, his father said. His mother took him aside later to fill in the gaps. They had fewer and fewer options. Moving again wasn't among them. So Muriel and Ernest Lloyd had decided that their son would behave best under their watchful eye. End of story. The lab where his parents worked was full of a large variety of plants. Some had been brought from Earth, transplanted to learn if they would grow on other worlds. Others were native to this rock, its limited atmosphere enough to sustain them. "What are these?" Waylon asked again. He'd spent most of the morning posing that same question. This time, the plants were small, with dark green leaves. A faint light of bioluminescence pulsed from within the plant. He ran his finger tentatively along the edge of one leaf. His mother had yet to seem tired of the questions. Some people call them star whispers. The technical term is luminara noctiluna, which means night moon, light bearer, she said as she probed the soil. "Where did they come from?" he asked. "I've never seen them anywhere else," Muriel said. "They seem to be native to this moon." "How is that possible? Don't they need air or something?" he asked. Muriel laughed. "Well, most plants need an atmosphere of some kind. Not regular air exactly, but carbon dioxide, CO2, and they need enough of it at a minimal partial pressure actually to use it." "Does Etzheim have that?" he asked. "Barely, but these plants don't need much. Some of Earth's plants can even survive here." She pointed to a row of greenery near where his father was working. "That lettuce over there is from Earth. It's very hardy. It can survive on this moon because there's just enough CO2 at a high enough pressure to support it." "Can we?" he asked. "Survive? On the surface?" Muriel shook her head. "No, the pressure's too low for us. Without pressure, the oxygen produced by these plants is lost to space." "So they produce oxygen? What do we produce?" he asked. "That's why plants are so important to us. We have a somewhat symbiotic relationship. We breathe out CO2, which they need. They produce O2, which we need." Waylon narrowed his eyes. "If there's barely enough to survive on, where did these plants come from?" She stuck out her lower lip. "Our best guess is they landed here from somewhere else. Bacteria, most likely. We found no native means of starting new life." "Is that what happened on Earth? Bacteria from other planets?" "Plant life on Earth probably originates there," Muriel said. "It had to start somewhere. That doesn't mean extrasolar bacteria couldn't have helped it along. Some strains could have originated off-planet." "So these came from somewhere else. Where would that be?" he asked. Waylon's father approached with a palette of plants. "These are the kinds of questions we were hoping you would answer." "Me?" Waylon said with a laugh. "Why not you?" his father asked. "You could do the research to figure out where these plants came from." Waylon screwed up his face. "Don't I have to go to school?" "To do what? Look up data?" Ernest interrupted. "You're right," his mother told him. "You should go to a school where they teach these things. But you don't have to. You can learn anything you want. All you need is the desire and the means." Waylon looked from face to face, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, he nodded. "So, if I want to study this stuff, you won't send me back to school?" "If you really want to learn," his father said, "we are happy to teach you." Waylon spent the next several weeks studying each plant in the lab. He wanted to start with the alien life, but his mother insisted that he focus on the terrestrial plants first. "I can't teach you as much about those things because we don't understand them as well," she told him. His father put him to work cleaning, moving plants, and doing maintenance. He found the manual labor far less satisfying. "That's what you'd be left with if you get no education at all," his father said. Near the end of a particularly long day, he was mopping the floor in the lab. All the staff had left, including his parents. They had come to trust him again, which he liked. "Way?" someone called from just outside the lab. Waylon recognized Tommy's voice. "Yeah, in here," he called. Tommy was a little older. Waylon never asked how much, but he guessed a year or two. "Whoa, Lloyd, what a setup," Tommy said. "Welcome to my kingdom," said Waylon. "What's up?" "Nothing, man. I just hadn't seen you around," said Tommy. "Thought you'd been spaced or something." "Nah, my folks took me out of school," Waylon said. Tommy grinned. "Was it because of our little adventure?" "That and other stuff," said Waylon. "So now they're working you to death?" Tommy asked. Waylon smiled. He hadn't thought of it that way, but the comment struck him. "No, I wanted to study this stuff." Tommy ran his hand along the top of a row of resurrection ferns. "Come on, man, you don't want to learn about this crap, do you?" "I know it doesn't look it, but it's interesting," said Waylon. "Interesting is the word you use when you don't want to say it sucks," Tommy said. Waylon nodded. "Maybe." "Maybe nothing," said Tommy. "Come on, I got hold of a teacher's key card." "A key card? For what?" Waylon asked. "I don't know. Maybe we can get into the science wing or something. It's got to be better than this," said Tommy. "I can't go right now, Tommy," Waylon said. His friend nodded, a broad grin on his face. "Got you locked down tight, don't they?" "It's not like that," said Waylon. Tommy backed away, his hands raised, a slight hop in his step. "No, I get it. Got to keep the rents happy. I'm going to bounce then. You know where to find me." Waylon watched his friend leave. In Tommy's absence, the lab seemed emptier than he remembered. He knew his friend meant trouble, but that didn't keep him from wanting to follow. The longer he mopped, the less he enjoyed it. When he'd gotten near the Star Whispers, his anger bubbled up, resulting in a few swear words under his breath. As he muttered these words, the plants seemed to react. It was subtle at first, the slightest changes in their glow. He barely noticed it. When he reached for the bucket with the mop, he caught its rim. The bucket toppled, its water spilling all over the floor. "Damn it!" he shouted. A wave of lights flowed through the surrounding Star Whispers. Rather than a soft white glow, the ripple of light took on shades of purple and red. Waylon stood motionless for several seconds. He stared at the plants, their lights returning to the subtle, pulsing glow he'd come to expect. He picked up the bucket and mopped up the water, periodically glancing at the alien plants. There was no further change in them. The next morning, his mother confronted him. She was carrying her analotron. "Did something happen after we left yesterday?" Waylon gave her a confused look. He'd already forgotten about the night before. "We got some strange readings overnight," she said. "The Mysilux orbitalis?" Ernest asked as he approached. "No, the Luminara," she said. "What kind of readings?" Ernest asked. "There was a spike in bioluminescent activity shortly after we left." She looked at Waylon. "You were still here then, weren't you?" Waylon shook his head slowly. "I don't remember anything special." As he said the words, the unusual reds and purples flashed in his mind. He decided not to mention them. He knew that would lead to more questions. Ernest looked over Muriel's shoulder at her analotron. "Interesting," he said. "Maybe O2 fluctuations?" "That or temperature," Muriel said. "Weird," Waylon said through a grimace. That evening, Waylon found himself alone again. This time, he was refilling the fertilizer tanks. He thought about the night before, trying to piece together what had happened. He knew why his mother got the reading she did, but he wasn't sure what caused it. When he'd finished his task, he approached the Star Whispers. "What's going on over here?" he asked. He ran his fingers across the rough leaves of some of the plants. The faint glow didn't change. It happened when I said, "Damn it," he thought. He spoke the words several times, changing his inflection, raising his voice. The plants did not respond. "Can't be that," he said. "Maybe it was the CO2. He leaned over the plants and breathed heavily on them. Still nothing. As he doused the lights, he wondered about the other things these plants might use. The next morning, it was his father's turn to confront him. "Why didn't you tell us he was here?" His father's voice had gotten loud. Waylon looked around. The other scientists and staff were looking his way. He wanted to disappear. "Waylon, you have to tell us these things," his mother said. She placed a hand on her husband's arm. "We trusted you to be honest with us," his father spat. "Nothing happened," Waylon said. "He didn't stay more than a few minutes." "The kid is trouble," his father said. Waylon's eyes narrowed. "That's what the school says about me, like I'm a weed or something." "You're not a weed," his mother said. "That kid is not allowed in here any more," his father shouted. "Understood?" Waylon held his father's gaze, cold anger echoing in his mind. His mother pulled gently on Ernest's arm, guiding him away. She offered Waylon a motherly nod, freeing him to turn and escape into the plants. It would be another week before his father trusted him enough to stay late. He hardly noticed the time pass. His mind was on getting some response from the Star Whispers. He lost himself in the literature, learning what he could. He spent the days trying out anything he could think of. For a while, he brought music into the lab, switching it up to see whether different tones or patterns affected the plants. Nothing seemed to change. In the evenings, he would ask his mother questions. There were many unfamiliar words and concepts he hadn't yet learned. He also wanted to understand the analytron and how to gather data. She was happy to guide him, and he never felt closer to her. For several weeks, Waylon made little progress with the Star Whispers. Nothing he tried got more than a modest response. For all he knew, the changes he saw were unrelated to his efforts. One evening, just after his parents left, he felt a heavy punch to his shoulder. The blow nearly launched his analytron from his hands. He turned to find Tommy with a face full of smile. "Hey, asswipe," his friend said. "Tommy!" Waylon was excited to see him. He threw a retaliatory punch, which his friend deftly avoided. "Still doing this crap?" Tommy scoffed. "I was sure you'd be back in school." Waylon looked around the room full of plants. "This is my school now." "Still got you under their thumb?" asked Tommy. "It's not like that, really," Waylon said. "Hey, remember that key card I found?" Tommy asked. "Made a copy. Got access to the whole school. I'm planning on seeing what they got in the chem lab. Want to go?" Waylon's eyes lit up. He briefly entertained the idea before coming back to his senses. "Sorry, man, I can't." Tommy pointed to the analytron in Waylon's hands. "At least they're letting you play with some of the toys." Waylon held up the device and looked it over. "Yeah, I guess." Tommy scanned the table of Star Whispers. He reached for one of the glowing leaves, ripping it from the plant. "Do me a favor, man," Waylon said. "Leave those alone." "They're just plants," Tommy said. "I know, but I'm studying them," Waylon said. Tommy handed him the torn leaf. "Here, now you can study a dead one." Waylon accepted the leaf with a frown. The light flickered blue as it sat in his hand, fading. Tommy grabbed one of the plants from the table and lifted it into the air. "What are these things, anyway?" Waylon reached for the pot, but his friend pulled it away. "Tommy, really, you're not supposed to be in here." "No? Why not?" Tommy asked. "You're just not, that's all," said Waylon. "I thought you were cool," said Tommy. Waylon let out an exasperated sigh. "I am, it's just—" Tommy lifted the plant high above his head. "You're becoming one of them." It was an argument that would have worked on him before. Waylon felt a little of the old jealousies well up. Tommy threw the plant on the ground between them, smashing it with his shoe. Rage surged up in Waylon. He launched himself at his friend, his shoulder lowered into the teen's stomach. Tommy hurtled backward into a table of silverleaf felonworts, spilling the plants across the floor. The table's momentum carried it into the hard Itelia, knocking a few of them over. When Waylon rose, he saw the damage they'd done just before Tommy's fist struck him across the cheek. The blow sent him falling backward into the Star Whispers. Tommy neared Waylon's prone form. "Think you can take me?" he seethed. Waylon wiped at his cheek, finding dirt and blood. He stared at Tommy, but remained where he was. "That's right, you stay down, right where they put you," Tommy sneered. After a few seconds, Tommy lifted his head in triumph, turned, and left the lab. Waylon watched him go. When he stood, he discovered the wreck that the lab had become. He turned toward the Star Whispers, his pet project. Around his feet was evidence of the brief conflict. Among the ruins were the plants' fading lights. The plants that remained untouched were reacting as well. Their lights flashed quicker and brighter than Waylon had seen before. He lifted a few pots off the floor. Some of the plants had already gone dark, while others were fading quickly. He felt a tension in his forehead as he tried to put them back. It was clear that they would not survive the damage. Tears broke through, forcing him to wipe his eyes with the corner of his sleeve. With his other hand, he stroked a few of the Star Whispers. Their leaves brightened with shades of pink. By the time he'd cleaned up the mess, more than an hour had passed. He was surprised to find his parents waiting for him as he left. "We were worried," his mother said. "I told you not to let that kid in here," his father barked. Waylon didn't mention the Star Whispers. When they returned home, Maya was sent to bed. Waylon took a seat in the small kitchen, waiting for his parents to read him the riot act. His mother sat to his right at the head of the table. She reached for his face, lightly touching his cheek. "Does it hurt?" Muriel asked. Waylon shook his head. He looked away, unable to hold her gaze. His father sat opposite him, a scowl on his face. "What happened?" he asked, a hint of accusation in his voice. Waylon only looked at him with defiance. In his mind, words mingled with anger and fear. He could feel the tension return to his forehead. As he struggled through this, he felt something. It was a slight shudder. Muriel's eyes darted to Ernest. "Did you feel something?" Waylon didn't wait for him to respond. Instead, he stood and went directly to his bedroom. Maya was covertly reading from her tablet when he walked in. "Up," he said without fanfare. "What? I was only—" "Up right now. We need to get the vac suits out." Maya still did not move, so Waylon bent and lifted her, setting her on the floor beside him. He reached beneath the lower bunk to the storage space where the family kept their vac suits. It was something they'd drilled into him since their days on Mars. Everyone knew where the vac suits were. The oxygen tanks were in the kitchen. The helmets were beneath the sofa. Waylon had pulled the suits out by the time his mother got there. He dropped one on Maya's lap and turned to his mother. "If it was a meteor strike," he said, handing her a suit. "I wouldn't expect that," Muriel responded. "There would have been some warning." "Explosion?" Ernest asked from beyond the door. "We need to get to an evac site," his mother said calmly. "What about the lab?" Waylon asked. "We can't worry about that right now," she said. A loud alarm began to sound both in their flat and just outside. They could hear the public address system, but the voice was too far away. They donned their oxygen packs before escaping into the corridor. The passageway was alive with people, their shouting drowning out the announcement. His mother pulled him by the hand, holding tight as they navigated the crowd. His father held Maya close as they followed. Most of the crowd was moving in the same direction, compelled by the emergency. Here and there, the Lloyds encountered someone pushing in the opposite direction. Waylon looked back periodically to see his father's concerned face. The crowd made it difficult to remain together, but his father was tall enough to be seen far off. Muriel did not slow. She was focused forward, her grip constant on his hand. She kept them to the outside of the crowd along the wall. The mass of people continued to build until the volume exceeded the available space. They were near the lab by then. Waylon tapped his mother's shoulder and pointed. A glance backward allowed him to signal Ernest. Inside the lab, the voice on the public address system was clearer. It droned on about calm and unconfirmed reports of an atmosphere breach. In the dim light of the lab, he could see flashes among the plants. Waylon grabbed his mother's arm and pointed. There were bright bursts of light erupting from different parts of that section. The colors were like those from the first time, purple and red with shades in between. "What are they reacting to?" Muriel asked as they neared that area. "I wish I knew," Waylon said. Waylon raised his hand toward the plants. The closer they got, the more the star whispers reacted. From reds and purples, their colors turned to pinks and blues. Waylon turned to see the stunned look on his parents' faces. Maya's look was more like a child meeting a fairy. "This happened that night," Waylon said. "What night?" Muriel asked. "Weeks ago? The spike?" Waylon nodded. "I was angry. I shouted. Their reaction was different. I thought it was my raised voice." "Like the PA announcer?" Ernest asked. Waylon shook his head. "I don't think sound is the answer. It might be emotion." Muriel pursed her lips, reacting to chemical changes or bioelectric. Waylon's look was pained. Muriel reached for him. "I don't expect you to know, sweetie, but you might be right. There could be something we give off. With this ventilation and a station full of panic, there's likely to be plenty of pheromones in the air," Ernest said. Muriel nodded her agreement. "That would explain what we found when we got here. Maybe Waylon's concern was enough to offset that as he approached." "So you think they feel what we're feeling?" Waylon asked. "It might not be feeling the way we experience it," Muriel answered. "They're probably reacting to what our bodies do when we have strong emotions. We give off pheromones and heightened bioelectric activity. It's likely to be one of those." The public address system went silent. The noise from the corridor had subsided as well. Waylon looked up as though waiting for a new message. None came. He looked down at the plants. Their flashes had diminished, the color fading to mostly white. Ernest cleared his throat. "Well, I suppose we should go outside and see what's happening." When they returned to the hallway, they found that the crowd had thinned and their direction reversed. Conversations had gotten lighter, and nearly everyone had their helmet off. "Did they say what the emergency was?" Ernest asked someone as they passed. "Something in the school, I think," the man said. Muriel turned to Waylon. He shook his head, having nothing to contribute. By the next morning, it became clear that the school was the location of the emergency. Someone had caused an explosion. Details sifted in through rumors over the ensuing days. When he finally heard of Tommy's death, Waylon went to sit in the lab among the star whispers. His parents appeared at the door. Muriel held her hand up to her husband, asking him to remain behind. She sidled up to her son, holding him close as he cried. "I could have stopped him," he finally said. "No, honey, you probably couldn't," Muriel told him. "But he was just—" Waylon broke off as he wiped at his eyes. "He was a troubled young man," she said. "But not bad," Waylon choked. "No," Muriel said. "Misunderstood, but not bad. Even weeds are flowers, too." Waylon shook his head, wiping again at his face. Muriel pulled her son's head to her chest as she fought back tears of her own. End of Flowers 2 by C.A.Wynn.